Hey guys! Tonight we are slipping back in time, not to a battlefield or a royal court, but to a place far more intimate and, in some ways, far more frightening, the Victorian bedroom. We're going to lie down in the dark, surrounded by heavy velvet curtains and the faint scent of coal smoke, and feel the creeping dread of a 19th century nightmare. Imagine a world where the line between dreams and reality is porous, where a bad dream isn't just a psychological blip but a potential symptom of a fatal illness, a moral failing, or something, pressing down on your chest. You're about to experience what that's like, and frankly, given the state of their medicine, you probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I love seeing where you're all watching from, so feel free to post your location and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The last of the daylight has bled from the sky, a final, faint stain of bruised purple and gray that now gives way to a profound and unnerving blackness. Your day is done. The scullery maid has finished her work, the clatter of pots and pans long silenced. The children, if you have them, are tucked away in their own rooms, hopefully sleeping soundly and not incubating some new and exciting fever. The house settles around you, its wooden bones groaning and creaking as the temperature drops. This is the hour when the city outside finally begins to quiet down. The rhythmic clop of horseshoes on cobblestone becomes sporadic, the cries of street vendors have faded, and the great, churning machine of London, or Manchester, or whatever grimy, industrious city you call home, finally throttles down for the night. You stand in the drawing room, a single gas lamp burning on the mantelpiece. You've been putting this moment off. The walk upstairs. The final surrender to the horizontal state of sleep. Your hand reaches for the small brass key on the wall fixture, the gas tap. With a gentle turn, you feed the flame, and with a soft pop and a sustained hiss, a small, fan-shaped fishtail of light blooms into existence, pushing the shadows back into the corners. This light is a modern marvel, a testament to progress. No more trimming wicks or fumbling with smelly tallow candles. Gaslight is clean, bright, and constant. Mostly. Except when it isn't. Sometimes it flickers, throwing wild, dancing shadows that make the familiar shape of a potted fern look like a lurking creature. It hisses, a constant, sibilant whisper in the quiet of the house. And sometimes, you're sure you can smell it, a faint, sweet, cloying odor that you know isn't good for the lungs. But it's better than the alternative, a deep, profound darkness that feels less like an absence of light and more like a physical presence. A heavy, smothering blanket. Holding a smaller, portable oil lamp now to light your way, you begin the ascent up the main staircase. The stair runner, a deep crimson carpet, muffles your footsteps. The dark wood of the banister is cool and smooth under your hand. The air grows colder the higher you go, away from the lingering warmth of the downstairs fireplace. Your small lamp carves a little bubble of moving light around you. Everything outside of it is an abyss. The family portraits on the wall seem to watch you from the gloom, their painted eyes following your progress. An ancestor in a severe black coat, a great aunt whose smile never quite reached her eyes. In the wavering lamplight, their expressions seem to shift, to harden, to mock. You reach the landing and proceed down the hallway to your bedroom. The gas lamp in the hall has been turned down to a tiny blue bead of light, a servant's flame, just enough to prevent you from tripping over a loose floorboard in the dead of night. It does little to illuminate the space, instead creating an eerie, twilight world of elongated shadows and distorted shapes. The tall, dark form of the grandfather clock at the end of the hall is a silent sentinel, its brass pendulum frozen mid-swing because you forgot to wind it again. For a moment, its stillness is more unsettling than its usual, rhythmic ticking. It feels like time itself is holding its breath, waiting. You push open your bedroom door. The air inside is thick, heavy with the scents of the day. A hint of the lavender water you use, the slightly musty smell of the heavy damask curtains, the faint, lingering aroma of the pomade in your hair. You place your lamp on the bedside table, and your private world is illuminated. It's a substantial room, a room of a person of some means. A large, four-poster bed dominates the space, its curtains tied back with thick, tasseled ropes. A heavy mahogany wardrobe stands against one wall, so tall its top is lost in the shadows. A dressing table with a silver-backed brush and comb set. A small chaise lounge. And a fireplace, its embers glowing a dull, sleepy orange. Everything is as it should be. Solid. Familiar. Safe. So why does your heart beat a little faster as you begin your nightly ritual? You pour water from a heavy ceramic pitcher into its matching bowl on the washstand. The water is cold, shockingly so, against your skin. As you wash your face, you avoid looking at your own reflection in the tilting mirror. In the flickering light, your own face can look like a stranger's. You undress, folding your day clothes neatly, the structured, slightly restrictive garments of your public life. The corset, the starched collar, the heavy wool trousers or the layers of petticoats. Shedding them is a relief, but it's also a form of disarmament. You are shedding your armor, becoming soft and vulnerable. You pull on a simple, loose-fitting nightshirt or nightgown, the cotton cool against your skin. Now there is nothing left to do but face the bed. It looks comfortable enough, with its soft feather mattress and layers of sheets and blankets. But lately, it has become a stage. A theater for horrors that feel more real than your waking life. For weeks now, you've been plagued by them. Not just unpleasant dreams, but true nightmares. The kind that leave you gasping, your heart hammering against your ribs, the thin cotton of your nightclothes damp with a cold sweat. You climb into the bed, the mattress sighing and sinking under your weight. The sheets are chilly. You lie back against the propped-up pillows and pull the covers up to your chin. You stare at the canopy high above you, a rectangle of dark fabric that swallows the light. The nightmare is not here yet, but the dread of it is. The anticipation is its own form of torment. It's a feeling that many of your contemporaries know well. Sleep, for the Victorian, is not the gentle, restorative escape we often think of it as. It's a loss of consciousness in a world perceived to be fraught with peril. It is a surrender of the will, the rational mind, to the chaotic, unpredictable wilderness of the unconscious. You think about the dreams themselves. Sometimes, you are falling from a great height, A church steeple or a crumbling cliff edge, the fall lasting an eternity, your stomach lurching with a terrifying, helpless velocity. Other times, you are being chased through winding, narrow city streets that you don't recognize, the sound of your own ragged breathing loud in your ears, a nameless, shapeless pursuer always just a few steps behind. But the worst ones, the ones that truly shake you to your core, are the ones where you cannot move. You are awake. You can see your own bedroom around you, the moonlight filtering through a gap in the curtains, but you are paralyzed. A tremendous weight settles on your chest, crushing the air from your lungs. You try to scream, to move a finger, but your body is a leaden prison. And sometimes, in the corner of your eye, you can see a dark shape, a hunched figure, watching you from the shadows by the wardrobe. This particular terror is so common it has a name, a holdover from a time before doctors and diagnoses. You are being hag-ridden. It's an ancient fear, the belief that a witch, or a demon, or some malevolent nocturnal spirit, the old hag, sits on your chest to torment you, to feed on your fear. It's folklore, superstition. You are an educated person of the 19th century, an age of reason and steam power and Charles Darwin. And yet, in the suffocating dark at 2 in the morning, with the breath crushed out of you, the old stories feel terribly, horribly real. This is a source of quiet shame. You know you should be above such primitive fears. You should believe in science. And it's that science you have turned to. After another night of waking up screaming, you finally sent a note to the doctor. He is scheduled to visit you tomorrow morning. And as you lie here, waiting for sleep, you find yourself rehearsing what you will tell him. You won't mention the old hag, of course. That would make you sound like a hysterical milkmaid. You will describe your symptoms in calm, rational terms. The palpitations, the shortness of breath, the vivid, disturbing dreams, the ensuing fatigue that dogs your days. You will present yourself as a patient, not a madman. You wonder what he will say. The world of medicine is changing so rapidly. New theories are debated in the pages of The Lancet. New connections are being drawn between the body, the mind, and the environment. Will he blame the plumbing? The food? The air? Historians still argue whether the rise of these formal medical explanations for nightmares truly replaced older, superstitious beliefs, or simply coexisted with them, creating a strange new landscape of anxiety where a frightening dream could be both a demonic assault and a symptom of a diseased liver. For many, the doctor's visit was just another form of ritual, his Latin-laced prescriptions a new kind of incantation against the ancient evils of the night. Your eyes drift to the gas lamp you left burning on the bedside table, turned down low. The little flame sputters. You really should turn it off. It's a waste of money, and some say sleeping in a room with a burning gas jet can vitiate the air, robbing it of its vital properties and leading to, well, to the very sort of troubled sleep you're trying to avoid. It's a bit of a laugh, isn't it? This celebrated invention, this beacon of modernity, might just be the very thing giving you a headache and a sense of unease. It's the original form of gaslighting, you think, with a flicker of grim humor that quickly fades. You'd rather have the light and the hiss than the suffocating silence and the deep, absolute blackness. The house creaks again, a loud groan from the floorboards overhead in the attic. Is it just the wood contracting in the cold? Or is it something else? Your ears strain in the quiet. You can hear the faint, rhythmic ticking of your own pulse in your ears. The whisper of the gas jet. The soft rustle of the sheets as you shift your weight. Every tiny sound is magnified, given a weight and a meaning it doesn't possess in the bright, noisy light of day. A mouse scurrying in the wall becomes a frantic scratching. The wind whistling in the chimney becomes a mournful moan. Your mind, already primed for fear, is a fertile ground for suggestion. You try to think of pleasant things, as the advice columns in the latest magazines suggest. A walk in the park. A line of poetry. The face of a loved one. But the anxious thoughts intrude, unbidden. Worries about work, about money, about your social standing. Did you say the right thing at dinner last week? Did that cough your youngest child has seem worse today? The Victorian mind is a pressure cooker of social expectation, moral anxiety, and repressed desire. There's a joke you heard the other day. Their version of doom scrolling before bed was just staring at the hideously complex patterns on their wallpaper until the demons emerged. You glance at your own floral wallpaper, and for a second, the swirling patterns of vines and roses seem to twist into leering faces. You shut your eyes tightly. You must sleep. You need to be rested for the doctor's visit tomorrow. You need your wits about you to properly explain your malady. But the very act of willing yourself to sleep only pushes it further away. It's a cruel paradox. The more you fear the nightmare, the more you court the sleeplessness that makes you vulnerable to it. Your breathing deepens. Your thoughts begin to lose their sharp edges, becoming blurred and disjointed. Images flash behind your eyelids. The face from the portrait on the stairs. The dark shape of the wardrobe. The feeling of falling, a sudden, sickening lurch in your gut that makes your whole body jerk. You are on the threshold now, the hazy, liminal space between waking and dreaming. You know that on the other side of that threshold, the hag, the pursuer, the endless, empty abyss is waiting for you. You can only hope the doctor, with his little black bag and his modern, scientific certainty, will have an answer. You just pray his cure isn't worse than the disease. A tiny, rational part of your brain, the part that is still awake, has a sinking feeling that it very well might be. You wake with a familiar, sickening jolt. Not from a noise, but from the violent end of a dream. For a moment, the heavy, brocaded pattern of your own bed curtains seems alien and menacing, the last vestiges of some nightmarish architecture clinging to your waking sight. The phantom sensation of falling is still fizzing in your limbs, your stomach a hollow, nervous pit. The night was long, punctuated by periods of sweaty, anxious wakefulness and shallow, troubled sleep. As promised, the nightmares came. The chase, the paralysis, the suffocating weight on your chest. You feel exhausted, as if you've run for miles in your sleep, which, in a way, you have. The morning light, usually a welcome sight, feels accusatory today, exposing the dust motes dancing in the air and the faint, grayish pallor of your own face in the dressing table mirror. The day ahead feels like a mountain to be climbed on too little rest. But today is different. Today, the doctor is coming. The thought is a small, hard kernel of hope in the general misery of the morning. An hour or so later, After you forced down a cup of weak tea and a piece of toast that felt like chewing on a shingle, you hear it. The sharp, decisive ring of the downstairs bell. A maid scurries to answer it, her footsteps quick and light on the flagstone floor of the entrance hall. You hear a low murmur of voices, and then a new set of footsteps. Heavier, slower, more deliberate. They are the footsteps of a man of substance, a man of science. They are ascending the stairs. You smooth down the covers of your bed, straighten your nightgown, and take a steadying breath as a polite knock sounds on your bedroom door. The doctor enters, and he is everything you expected him to be. A man in his middle years, dressed in a severe but well-tailored black suit, his face framed by formidable mutton chop whiskers. He carries a worn leather Gladstone bag that seems heavy with the weight of accumulated knowledge and arcane instruments. He radiates an aura of calm, professional authority, a placid certainty that is, in itself, a potent medicine. He nods to you, a slight, courteous bow of the head. "Good morning," he says, his voice a smooth baritone. "I received your note. You've been experiencing some nocturnal disturbances?" He sets his bag down with a soft thud and pulls the visitor's chair over to your bedside. You begin to explain, your voice a little unsteady at first. You tell him about the troubled sleep, the vivid and terrifying dreams. You use the carefully selected, medical-sounding words you rehearsed last night. You speak of palpitations, of a sensation of constriction in the chest, of the distressing feeling of falling. You are careful to edit out the part where you thought a malevolent hag was sitting on you. You're aiming for a diagnosis, not a committal to an asylum. He listens intently, his gaze steady, his head tilted slightly. He nods in all the right places, making small, encouraging sounds. I see, I see. And the nature of the dreams? Are they recurring? You admit that they are. He asks about your habits, your work, your family life. Then, he begins his examination. "Let me see your tongue, if you would." You comply, and he peers at it with the focused intensity of a jeweler examining a flawed diamond. He takes your wrist, his fingers cool and dry as he presses them against your pulse point, his eyes on his pocket watch, counting the beats. He produces a stethoscope from his bag, a simple wooden tube, not the binaural type we know today, and places the wide end against your chest, listening to the frantic bird of your heart and the whisper of your lungs. Finally, he asks you to lie back, and with firm, methodical pressure, his fingers probe your abdomen. He presses just below your ribs, then further down. Any tenderness here? Or here? You wince slightly at one particularly firm jab. He makes a small, satisfied noise, a soft hum of confirmation. The physical examination is over in minutes. He straightens up, wipes his hands with a handkerchief, and sits back down in the chair, steepling his fingers before him. He is the very picture of diagnostic contemplation. "Well," he begins, his tone reassuringly definitive, "I believe I have identified the culprit. Your affliction, I am quite certain, is not a malady of the mind, nor is it a primary disorder of the nerves, though they are certainly affected. The root of the problem, my dear patient, is your stomach." Your stomach? You think of the violent, cinematic horrors of your dreams, the existential terror of the fall, the suffocating presence in the room. And the cause is your stomach? You are suffering from a rather acute case of dyspepsia, he continues, leaning forward slightly as if sharing a great secret. Dyspepsia. Indigestion. It was the great catch-all diagnosis of the Victorian era, a single, convenient hook upon which 1,000 different ailments could be hung. Depression, anxiety, migraines, exhaustion, skin conditions, and yes, especially nightmares, were all traced back to a faulty gut. The doctor proceeds to explain the science of it to you, a science that sounds both impeccable and slightly insane to modern ears. You must picture your stomach as a furnace, he says, gesturing with his hands. It is the central engine of your entire physical economy. When you consume food, it is the furnace's job to burn it, to transform it into the vital energy that fuels your body and mind. He pauses for effect. But if you put the wrong fuel into the furnace, food that is too rich, too heavy, improperly cooked, or consumed too late in the evening, the furnace cannot burn it cleanly. Instead, it smolders. It produces noxious vapors, fumes. You stare at him, mesmerized by this new, terrifying vision of your own internal landscape as a poorly ventilated Victorian factory. These morbid vapors, he goes on, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, do not simply remain in the stomach. They rise. They travel upwards, through the bloodstream, and they infiltrate the most delicate organ of all, the brain. And there, in the dark, during the vulnerable hours of sleep, they wreak their havoc. They agitate the sleeping mind, irritate the nerves, and produce these dreadful phantasmagoria you have been experiencing. Suddenly, your nightmares are recontextualized. That feeling of a heavy weight on your chest, the one you secretly feared was an old hag. That, the doctor explains patiently, is merely the physical pressure of trapped gases in your stomach and intestines, pressing upwards against your diaphragm and lungs. It is a purely mechanical phenomenon. The dream of falling? A sympathetic reaction of the nervous system, which is being irritated by the same acidic, gaseous condition. The nameless pursuer in your dreams? A spectral manifestation of a particularly stubborn piece of undigested beef. He has taken your terror and given it a name. He has turned your spectres into secretions. There's a strange comfort in it. You are not going mad. You are not spiritually cursed. You just have bad plumbing. Now comes the cure. The doctor opens his bag again and produces a notepad and a fountain pen. The first and most important step is a radical alteration of your diet. We must give the furnace only the cleanest, simplest fuel. He begins to write, the nib scratching across the paper. He hands you the list. It is a testament to culinary despair. Forbidden are all red meats, especially pork, which he informs you is notoriously difficult for a delicate stomach to process. Also forbidden are rich sauces and gravies, all fried foods, pastries, pies, cheese, liquid putrescence, he calls it with a shudder, pickles, nuts, and most raw vegetables. He is particularly adamant about cucumbers, which he tells you are little more than solidified water, possessing a chilling quality that can extinguish the digestive fire entirely. This was a surprisingly common belief. The humble cucumber was often viewed with deep suspicion, as if it were a green, gourd-shaped assassin. Your new diet will consist of boiled chicken, steamed white fish, well-cooked mutton, but only on occasion, soft-boiled eggs, dry toast, and gruel. Lots and lots of gruel. Oatmeal gruel is a wonderful stomachic, he says brightly. It coats the gastric lining and provides simple, honest nourishment. A little joke forms in your mind. You're not sure which is worse, the nightmares or a lifetime of gruel. You decide to keep it to yourself. You look at this bleak menu for your future and think of the typical meals of your class. The heavy dinners, the roasted joints of meat, the suet puddings, the cakes and trifles. And that's to say nothing of the food itself. This is where a modern observer might see a different cause and effect. Historians still argue whether the era's notoriously heavy, adulterated, and poorly preserved food supply created the widespread dyspepsia, or if the medical obsession with digestion simply made people hyper-aware of every minor stomach gurgle. The bread was often whitened with chalk or alum, the tea bulked out with iron filings, the beer topped up with strychnine for a bitter kick. Perhaps it wasn't the cucumber you had to worry about, but the lead in your wine. But diet alone is not enough. The doctor reaches into his bag and pulls out a small, dark blue glass bottle, corked and sealed with wax. I am also leaving you with a digestive tonic, he says. A teaspoon in a little water after each meal. It is a preparation of gentian root and cardamom. The bitter principles will stimulate the secretion of healthy gastric juices. It sounds vaguely pleasant until you uncork it later and the overwhelmingly bitter, medicinal smell hits you. It tastes like anger and regret. He also gives you a small tin of what he calls bicarbonate of potash, powders. If you feel the telltale pressure and bloating building in the evening, mix a small amount of this in water. It will neutralize the morbid acids and absorb the offensive gases. It's a 19th century antacid, a primitive Tums. Another little joke, just for you. He's basically prescribing a science fair volcano for your insides. The doctor stands up, his work here done. He places his instruments back in his bag, which he snaps shut with a satisfying click. Follow this regimen strictly, he commands. A light supper, taken no later than 6 in the evening. A short, gentle walk before bed to aid the digestion. No reading of sensational novels or exciting news reports at night. And take the tonic. You will find your nocturnal troubles will vanish within the week. He gives you another curt nod, and then he is gone, his confident footsteps receding down the stairs, leaving you alone in your room with a bottle of bitter liquid, a tin of chemical dust, and a death sentence for your taste buds. You are left in a state of curious relief and profound new anxiety. Your secret shame has been diagnosed and demystified. But now, your entire life must revolve around this tyrannical organ, your stomach. Every meal is a medical procedure. Every menu is a minefield. The kitchen, once a place of comfort and savory aromas, is now a potential source of pathology. Later that day, you head downstairs for your midday meal. From the kitchen, you can smell the rich, fatty aroma of frying sausages and onions, a meal being prepared for other members of the household. It smells like pure joy. It smells like home. And now, according to the man of science, it smells like danger. It smells like a night of suffocating, falling, and being chased through the dark corridors of your own mind. You sit down at the table. In front of you, the cook has placed your first prescription, a small piece of poached cod, its white flesh flaking sadly, and a single, unadorned boiled potato. It looks pale, anemic, and profoundly lonely on the large plate. This, you think, is the first step on your road to recovery. This bland, soulless meal is your shield against the terrors of the night. As you lift the fork and take the first tasteless bite, you can't help but wonder if you've just exchanged one form of torture for another. It has been 3 weeks. 3 weeks of what you have come to think of as the Great Blandening. You have consumed more boiled cod than a harbor seal. You have dutifully choked down your bitter gentian tonic after every meal, the taste and enduring punishment on your tongue. You have chewed your charcoal biscuits, hoping to absorb the noxious gases that the doctor assured you were the root of all your problems. You have, in short, been a model patient. And for what? Nothing. The nightmares have not vanished. In fact, they seem to have thrived on the boiled chicken and steamed fish, growing more vivid, more tenacious. The falling dream now seems to have new, terrifying details. The specific pattern of the bricks as you plummet past, the faces of strangers watching from windows. The suffocating pressure on your chest has become a regular, unwelcome visitor, a nightly appointment you cannot cancel. Your experiment with the scientific, digestive cure has been a spectacular failure. All it has accomplished is to make you miserable both at night and during every single mealtime. The hope you felt after the doctor's visit has curdled into a familiar, leaden despair. Your continued exhaustion has not gone unnoticed. Your fatigue is a visible thing, a gray shadow under your eyes. And where official medicine has failed, unsolicited family advice is always ready to step in. It comes in the form of a visit from a senior relative, perhaps your formidable Aunt Agatha or a pious uncle who sees the world through the lens of sin and salvation. They sit with you in the drawing room, a cup of tea steaming untouched in their hands, their expression a mixture of pity and stern disapproval. They listen patiently as you recount the failure of the doctor's dietary regimen. They nod slowly, but not with surprise. Of course it failed, their silence seems to say. The doctor was looking in the wrong place. He was treating the body, the mere vessel, when the problem is clearly a matter of a higher, more delicate order. It is not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, your uncle says, his voice low and resonant, quoting scripture as easily as breathing. But what comes out of the heart? And there it is. The new diagnosis. The problem isn't your stomach, it's your spirit. It is not a physical malady, but a moral one. Your nightmares, he explains, are the direct result of a spiritual failing, a weakness of character. They are the weeds that grow in the untended garden of the soul. He speaks of a moral miasma, an invisible pollution caused by impure thoughts, by idleness, by a lack of vigorous purpose or a wavering of faith. Suddenly, your private nocturnal terrors are reframed once again. That recurring dream of being chased through dark, labyrinthine streets? You are not being pursued by a manifestation of undigested pork. No, you are fleeing your own guilty conscience. There must be some duty you have shirked, some sin you have left unconfessed. And the awful, suffocating weight on your chest? Remember that old, hag-ridden feeling you were so quick to dismiss? Well, It is a hag, of a sort. The old hag of your own guilt, pressing down on you, reminding you of your own moral laxity. The fall from the great height is the most obvious of all, a clear, unambiguous symbol of a fall from grace. Your soul is in peril, and your dreams are its frantic, desperate alarm bells. This is a heavier burden to bear than dyspepsia. A faulty gut is an inconvenience. A faulty soul is a catastrophe. The prescription, this time, does not come from a doctor's bag, but from the unwritten Victorian rulebook of righteous living. There will be no more tonics or powders. Your new medicine is discipline. A regimen of spiritual and physical fortitude designed to banish the shadows from your mind by leaving no idle moment in which they might breed. The first instruction is to conquer the dawn. You are to rise the moment you wake, no matter how early. No lolling in bed, no drowsy contemplation. To lie in bed, they say, is to marinate in weakness. You are to immediately take a cold bath, the shock of the icy water intended to jolt the body and spirit into a state of vigor and alertness. Your days must now be filled with relentless, wholesome purpose. For a man of the house, this means a renewed and vigorous attention to your business affairs, to your correspondence, to improving your mind with serious, worthy books, history, theology, economics. For a woman, it means a flurry of activity. Managing the household with an iron fist, engaging in improving charitable works for the deserving poor, practicing the piano until your fingers ache. There is to be absolutely no time for frivolous pursuits. That sensational novel you were enjoying must be put away. Such things, your aunt warns, overstimulate the imagination and plant the seeds of dramatic, unwholesome dreams. The goal is to arrive at bedtime so physically and mentally exhausted by virtuous labor that you simply have no energy left for nightmares. It's a key tenet of what some are calling muscular Christianity, the popular idea that physical health and a disciplined life are outward signs of a pure and steadfast Christian faith. A healthy soul, it seems, requires a tired body. It all sounds so exhausting. A joke flickers through your weary mind. Your only truly impure thought at the moment is a vivid fantasy of hurling the doctor's uneaten boiled cod against the drawing-room wall. This new regimen feels less like a cure and more like a sentence. You are now a prisoner of your own character, under constant surveillance by yourself. It's a subtle but profound shift. Historians still argue whether this reframing of nightmares as a moral failing was a genuine attempt at spiritual guidance or an insidious form of social control, reinforcing conformity and discouraging dissent. Was this advice truly meant to soothe your troubled soul, or was it designed to ensure you remained a productive, pious, and unquestioning member of society? The effect, regardless of the intent, is a deep, creeping sense of shame. The centerpiece of this new treatment is spiritual. You are instructed to pray more often, with greater fervor. You are given specific psalms to read before bed. Psalm chapter 91, a prayer for protection from the terror of night, is highly recommended. And then comes the most peculiar, and perhaps most cruel, instruction of all. You are to keep a dream diary. This is not the kind of dream journal one might keep today for self-discovery. This is an evidence log for the prosecution. You are to write down every detail of your nightmares. The landscape, the figures, the feelings. Then, In the cold, rational light of morning, you are to dissect them. You must perform a moral autopsy on your own subconscious. What sin, what hidden vanity, what secret fear did this dream reveal? A nightmare where your teeth fall out? That's not a common anxiety dream. It is a divine warning against personal vanity. A dream of being improperly dressed in public? Not a social anxiety, but a manifestation of the shame you should feel for a secret, impure thought you had last Tuesday. Your mind is no longer a private theater. It is a crime scene, and you are both the criminal and the detective. So you try. You truly do. You haul your weary body out of bed at dawn and plunge into the shocking cold of the bath. You fill your days with work, with ledgers, with charity committee meetings, with pounding out scales on the piano. You read sobering histories of martyrs and saints. You avoid novels as if they were poison. In the evening, you sit with your new journal, its clean, empty pages an accuser in their own right. You try to analyze last night's dream of being trapped in a house where the rooms kept changing and the doors wouldn't open. Is it because you secretly envy your neighbor's new carriage? A sign of covetousness? Or is it that you have been lax in your Sunday school duties? A sign of sloth? The process is maddening. It's like trying to nail jelly to a wall. You invent sins to fit the visions, retroactively pathologizing your own imagination. Trying not to have a bad thought becomes its own obsession, a mental exercise as exhausting and futile as trying to hold back the tide. You know how people joke about trying not to think of a pink elephant? It's 1,000 times harder when you're trying not to think about, well, absolutely anything that might be deemed improper by your stern, judgmental aunt. Tonight, you go through the whole ritual again. You have eaten your sad, boiled supper. You have performed your evening prayers on your knees, the rough texture of the rug a familiar discomfort. You have read a chapter from a book on the moral duties of the household. You have sat with your journal and found yourself guilty of at least 3 new spiritual failings you hadn't been aware of yesterday. You are now in bed, the lamp extinguished. The house is silent around you. You have done everything you were told. You have purified your body with diet and your day with discipline. You have scrubbed your conscience raw with self-examination. You should be a fortress of virtue, impregnable to the phantoms of the night. But you are not. You are just tired and scared. The dread is still there, a cold knot in the pit of your stomach, right next to the undigested potato. Because now, the stakes are so much higher. Before, the nightmare was a random torment. Now, it is a judgment. It is a report card from your own soul, and you are certain you are about to fail. As your mind begins to drift, to soften at the edges, the familiar sensation begins. That lurching, sickening drop in your stomach. You are at the top of the cliff again, the wind whistling in your ears. And as you begin to fall, a new thought accompanies the terror, a thought more dreadful than the fall itself. I deserve this. The regimen of moral discipline has broken you. Not your nightmares, but the supposed cure for them. Waking in the black, pre-dawn cold to plunge yourself into an icy bath, spending your days in a flurry of joyless, prescribed activity, and then your evenings picking apart your own dreams for evidence of sin. It has hollowed you out. The weight on your chest is no longer a phantom of the night. It is a permanent resident, a constant companion of guilt and failure. You have tried to purify your body with the bland diet, and you have tried to purify your soul with prayer and productivity. Both have failed. You are left with only one conclusion: you are incurable. A person of such flawed digestion and character that you are beyond the help of both science and God. You are more tired than you have ever been in your life. The desperation is a physical thing, a frantic, buzzing energy beneath your exhaustion. You need sleep. Not the restorative, gentle sleep of the righteous, but just a few hours of simple, black oblivion. You need to turn your own mind off. And so, you abandon the advice of your pious relatives, just as you abandon the doctor's diet. You find yourself, one gray afternoon, standing before the tall, glass-fronted cabinets of a chemist's shop. The air inside is a heady mix of strange, conflicting scents. The clean, sharp smell of carbolic soap, the sweet perfume of scented lozenges, and a mysterious, earthy, almost floral aroma that you can't quite place. The shop is lined with drawers, each with a small, elegant porcelain label bearing a Latin name. It feels less like a shop and more like a wizard's workshop. You approach the counter and explain your predicament to the chemist, a thin man with ink stains on his fingers and spectacles perched on the end of his nose. You speak in a low voice, ashamed of your own weakness. You tell him of the insomnia, the persistent, nerve-shredding anxiety, the terrible dreams that leave you shaken and exhausted. He listens with a look of profound, weary sympathy. This is a story he has heard 100 times. He doesn't suggest a diet. He doesn't inquire about the state of your soul. He simply nods, turns to one of his shelves, and takes down a small, rectangular bottle filled with a dark, reddish-brown liquid. He polishes it with a cloth before placing it on the counter between you. "Laudanum," he says, his voice soft. "A tincture of opium. 10 drops in a little water before bedtime. It will quiet the nerves, silence the troublesome thoughts, and grant you a deep and peaceful sleep." Entirely dreamless. He might have even called it God's own medicine, a common moniker for the substance that promised such divine relief from earthly suffering. You stare at the bottle. Laudanum. You have heard of it, of course. Everyone has. It is perhaps the most common medicine in all of England. Your own grandmother used it for her cough. Mothers use a sweetened, diluted version called Godfrey's cordial to quiet colicky babies. It is used for pain, for diarrhea, for consumption, for female troubles, for a dozen other complaints. It is sold openly, without a doctor's prescription, as easily as one might buy a bar of soap. It was a miracle substance, and its dark, addictive heart was a secret the century was only just beginning to uncover. You purchase the bottle and take it home, clutching it in your pocket as if it were a precious jewel. That night, you dispense with the prayers and the moral inventory. You sit at your bedside table and look at the little bottle, your heart thumping with a mixture of hope and trepidation. The label is simple, listing the contents and the dosage. You uncork it and an unfamiliar smell wafts out, bitter, alcoholic, with that same strange, heavy floral note you smelled in the chemist's shop. The scent of the poppy. You measure out the 10 drops with the little glass dropper, watching as the viscous, dark liquid falls into a glass of water, turning it a cloudy, amber color. Some people, you've heard, drip the drops onto a lump of sugar to make the intensely bitter taste more palatable, a little ritual to sweeten the poison. You, however, drink it down neat. The taste is vile, a chemical bitterness that coats your entire mouth, but you barely notice. You are focused on the effect. It doesn't take long. Within 20 minutes, a slow, spreading warmth begins to bloom in your chest, unclenching the tight knot of anxiety that has lived there for months. The worries of the day, the bills, the social obligations, the constant, gnawing sense of your own inadequacy, begin to lose their sharp edges. They float away from you, becoming distant, muffled, unimportant. A profound sense of calm, of serene detachment, settles over you. It is the most wonderful feeling you have ever experienced. A little voice in your head, the one that's been screaming about your imminent damnation, has finally gone quiet. It's a miracle. You get into bed, and for the first time in what feels like an eternity, the bed feels like a sanctuary, not a stage for your terrors. The heavy mahogany wardrobe is just a piece of furniture. The shadows in the corner are just shadows. You pull the covers up and a heavy, pleasant languor steals over your limbs. Sleep comes not as an enemy you must wrestle into submission, but as a gentle, welcome friend, pulling a soft, black curtain over your consciousness. But the chemist's promise of a dreamless sleep was a lie. A well-intentioned, but colossal, lie. You do not dream of falling. You are not chased. Instead, you find yourself adrift in a world far stranger than anything your own anxious mind could have conceived. You are in a vast, cavernous hall, the ceiling so high it is lost in shadow. Colossal stone faces, covered in moss and strange carvings, stare down at you from the walls. The air is thick with incense and the sound of echoing, non-human chants. Time seems to stretch and contract. You feel as though you have been in this place for 1,000 years, and also for only a single second. The emotional tenor is not the hot, sharp fear of your usual nightmares, but a deep, overwhelming, and profoundly melancholic sense of awe and alienation. It is beautiful, and it is terrifying. It is, you realize upon waking, an opium dream. You surface back into consciousness slowly, as if rising from a great depth. Your mouth is dry, your head thick and fuzzy. A strange sense of dislocation lingers, the impossible architecture of your dream still seeming more real than your own familiar bedroom. But you slept. You slept through the entire night without waking once. The dream was bizarre, yes, deeply unsettling in its own way, but it lacked the frantic, personal terror of your old nightmares. You consider this a victory. You might even joke to yourself that you'll have to go back and ask the chemist for a partial refund on the dreamless guarantee. So you continue to take it. The next night, you eagerly await the ritual, the bitter taste, the spreading warmth. And the next night. But soon, you notice that 10 drops no longer produce that same profound sense of blissful detachment. The effect is weaker. The anxiety is not quite silenced. So you add a few more drops. 12. Then 15. The small bottle on your nightstand becomes the most important object in the room. You are not alone in this. Historians still argue whether the widespread use of opiates was seen by Victorians as a desperate medical necessity in an age of pain, or as a quiet, socially acceptable vice, particularly among women confined to the domestic sphere. Was this a legitimate treatment for your nerves, or a secret indulgence, a chemical escape from a life of rigid expectations? You tell yourself it is the former. You are a patient, treating a stubborn illness. You are in control. But the dreams are changing. As the dose increases, the surreal landscapes of your slumber begin to sour. The melancholy deepens into dread. The vast, architectural spaces are no longer just awe-inspiring. They are menacing, oppressive. They become prisons, labyrinths with no exit. The faces on the walls are no longer impassive. They are grotesque, leering. You dream you are at the bottom of the ocean, watching ancient, lightless creatures drift by, their forms both beautiful and repugnant. You dream you are a spectator at your own funeral, watching loved ones weep over a version of you made of crumbling stone. You've traded your old, simple horror movies for disturbing, avant-garde art films, and you're not sure it's an improvement. It's like you fired your personal hag only to hire a full-blown, Cthulhu-esque demon with a flair for the dramatic. The darkness begins to bleed into your waking hours. You feel sluggish, perpetually constipated. Your thoughts are cloudy, your emotions muted. The world seems to be happening at a distance, viewed through a pane of dirty glass. The only moments of clarity and relief are in the evening, when you prepare your nightly dose. Tonight, you stand before your bedside table, the laudanum bottle in your hand. It is half empty. A cold realization dawns on you. This medicine, this dark, bitter miracle, is the architect of these new, monstrous visions. But you also know, with an even colder certainty, that if you stop taking it, you will not sleep at all. The old nightmares of falling and being chased will return, and they will bring with them the new and terrible agitations of withdrawal. The cure has become indistinguishable from the curse. You are trapped. You hold the dropper over the glass, your hand steady. You watch the dark, syrupy drops fall, one by one. 20 of them tonight. The bitter, poppy-scented air fills your lungs. You have the key to your own prison in your hand, and you are about to willingly lock the door from the inside. You are caught. The little brown bottle on your nightstand has become both your jailer and your only key to escaping the night. Each evening, you willingly swallow the dark, bitter tincture, and each evening, it drags you down into a beautiful, terrifying, alien world. You sleep, but you wake up feeling ancient and dislocated, the phantom architecture of your opium dreams clinging to you like a shroud long into the morning. Your waking hours are a gray, sluggish fog. Your family watches you with worried eyes. They see you are fading, becoming a ghost in your own home. The cure has become a disease more insidious than the one it was meant to treat. Something must be done. Another doctor is called. And it is here, in this moment of desperation, that our story must cleave in two. The path of treatment, which has so far been paved with diagnoses that could, in theory, apply to anyone, a faulty gut, a weak character, a dependency on opiates, now forks. Because if the patient suffering in this bed is a woman, the doctor who walks into the room sees a completely different set of possibilities. He looks at the same symptoms through an entirely new lens. So, for this part of our journey, let's allow that reality to settle in. You are the lady of this house. The exhaustion, the nightmares, the dependency on laudanum, all of it is your story. And the man of science who now stands before you is here to diagnose not just your ailment, but your very femininity. He is a specialist, a physician renowned for his work with nervous disorders in females. He is smooth, confident, and his eyes have a look of weary knowingness, as if there is no female complaint so strange it could possibly surprise him. He listens to your story. He notes the bottle of laudanum by your bed with a tut-tutting click of his tongue. He hears about the old nightmares of falling and paralysis, and the new ones, the bizarre, chemically fueled visions. He nods, his face a mask of professional sympathy. And then he dismisses everything you've been told before. Your dyspepsia? A secondary symptom. Your supposed moral failings? The unfortunate ramblings of an overzealous clergyman. Your addiction? A predictable outcome for a creature of delicate sensibilities. The true cause, he explains, is much deeper. It is fundamental to your very nature as a woman. He diagnoses you with hysteria. Hysteria. It is the great, cavernous, catch-all diagnosis of the century for your gender. Its symptoms were famously said to include, and this is a direct quote from a medical text of the time, everything from fainting and nervousness to a tendency to cause trouble. The very word, the doctor might explain, comes from the ancient Greek hystera, meaning uterus. The theory, passed down from the age of Hippocrates, was that a woman's womb was a restless, animal-like organ. If it became irritable or dissatisfied, it could detach itself and wander freely throughout the body, wreaking havoc wherever it went. A joke, sharp and bitter, forms in your mind. You wonder if your womb has packed a little suitcase for its travels around your anatomy. The doctor now reinterprets all of your suffering through this terrifying, absurd new framework. The original sensation of a weight on your chest, the feeling of suffocation? That is the globus hystericus, he says with absolute certainty. It is the physical sensation of your own womb pressing up against your throat, trying to choke you. Your dreams of falling? A clear manifestation of your innate female tendency towards swooning and fainting fits. Your paralysis nightmares? A classic symptom of a hysterical trance. Even your laudanum use is folded into the diagnosis. It is no longer just a dependency on a chemical. It is proof of your inherently emotional, unstable, and sensation-seeking female constitution. You couldn't handle your troubles, so you reached for a crutch. It was only to be expected. You lie there, pinned to the sheets by this litany of your own biological flaws. Your suffering is no longer just happening to you. It is you. It is your womanhood, gone rogue. It is a profoundly demoralizing thought. Historians still argue whether the diagnosis of hysteria was a genuine, if misguided, attempt to understand female health, or a powerful tool for pathologizing and controlling women who failed to conform to the ideal of the passionless, pious, and perfectly domestic angel of the house. Was this medicine he was practicing? Or was it social engineering? A way to gently inform you that your suffering was, in fact, a form of misbehavior? But he has a cure. A modern, scientific cure for this ancient, wandering curse. He is going to save you from yourself. First, the laudanum must go. He takes the bottle from your nightstand. But his primary treatment is something else, a method gaining great popularity for treating hysterical women like you. It is called the rest cure, and it sounds, at first, deceptively gentle. The doctor lays out the regimen, his voice calm and authoritative. For the next 6 to 8 weeks, you will be confined to this room, to your bed. You are not to leave it for any reason. You are to be in a state of absolute rest. No visitors will be permitted. Not your friends, not your children, not your husband. Complete isolation. You are to be shielded from any and all external stimuli that might overexcite your delicate nerves. Furthermore, you are to do nothing. You will not read. You will not write letters. You will not sew or knit. You are forbidden from even feeding yourself or brushing your own hair. A special nurse, whom he will provide, will attend to your every need. You are to become completely, utterly passive, a body at rest. And while you are resting, you will be fed. The doctor waves a dismissive hand at the memory of your old, bland diet. That was for a simple case of digestion. Your problem is a depletion of nerve force. To rebuild it, you must be fattened up like a prize sow. The nurse will feed you a diet consisting almost entirely of milk, cream, and butter, multiple times a day. The goal is to make you gain as much weight as possible, as quickly as possible. The theory holds that a plump woman is a placid woman. He has essentially swapped your old doctor's prescription of gruel for what a later generation might call a blubber cure. Because you will be immobile, the nurse will also be trained in massage. She will knead and rub your limbs daily to maintain circulation and prevent your muscles from atrophying while you lie here, being cured. The doctor leaves, promising to check on your progress, that is, your weight gain, in a week. Soon after, the nurse arrives. She is a sturdy, silent woman with impassive eyes and efficient hands. And so the rest cure begins. The first few days are a special kind of hell. The laudanum is gone, and you are thrown into the throes of withdrawal, the sweats, the aches, the frantic, crawling anxiety, but you are not allowed to move. You must lie there and endure it, your only distraction the relentlessly patterned wallpaper and the slow passage of light across the ceiling. The nurse arrives with a large glass of milk, cool and thick. You say you are not hungry, that you feel sick. She says nothing, but her expression makes it clear that your appetite is irrelevant. This is your medicine. You drink it. The days stretch into a long, monotonous, waking nightmare. The silence is absolute, broken only by the rustle of the nurse's uniform, the clink of a glass, the ticking of a clock you cannot see. You lose track of time. Your world shrinks to the 4 posts of your bed. The boredom is a physical presence, a heavy, suffocating blanket. The old nightmares, the ones born of your own mind and of the poppy, are gone. They have been replaced by this. The horror of utter emptiness. You try to talk to the nurse, but she is trained to be impassive, to deflect conversation. When the doctor visits, you try to protest. You tell him you feel worse, that the isolation is maddening. He smiles a thin, clinical smile and tells you that your very protest is a symptom of your ongoing hysteria. It shows you are still fighting the cure. You must learn to submit, to be passive, to rest. This, you realize, is the true purpose of the cure. It is designed to break your will. to dismantle your personality, your intellect, your very sense of self, and then, once you are reduced to a state of placid, infantile dependency, to rebuild you into a more acceptable shape. A quieter shape. A more obedient shape. Weeks pass. Your body grows heavier, softer. Your limbs feel disconnected from you. Your mind, starved of stimulation, becomes numb. You stop protesting. You drink the milk. You stare at the wall. The silence in your mind is profound. But it is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of an empty room, of a vacated house. You wonder if this is what it feels like to be cured. Not to be healed, but to be erased. The wandering womb has been caught, it seems, and locked in a quiet, padded cell of your own flesh. The road to a peaceful night's sleep is littered with failures. The bland diet of boiled fish left you hungry and still haunted. The stern regimen of cold baths and prayer only added guilt to your exhaustion. The dark, syrupy promise of laudanum dragged you into a beautiful and terrifying prison of its own making. And for some of you, the waking nightmare of the rest cure sought to erase your very personality in the name of placid health. Each cure has failed, each leaving its own unique scar on your spirit. You are a walking testament to the limits of 19th century medicine. Your doctor, faced with this comprehensive history of failure, is at a loss. He has probed your body, scrutinized your soul, and pacified your nerves, all to no avail. There is only one frontier left to explore. If the problem does not reside within you, then it must be coming from without. The cause of your suffering, he declares with a fresh wave of diagnostic certainty, is not your digestion, nor your character, nor your wandering womb. It is the very air you breathe. He begins to lecture you on a concept that you, like every Victorian, understand intuitively: miasma. This is the bedrock of medical thinking for your time, the great unifying theory of disease long before anyone imagined tiny, invisible germs. The world, he explains, is full of decay. Rotting garbage in the gutters, stagnant water in the Thames, the effluents from the local factory, the very soil of the church graveyard, all of it constantly emits miasmata. These are invisible but potent particles of decomposition, a noxious fog of corruption that rises into the atmosphere. And the most dangerous air of all, he warns, is the night air. While you sleep, the air becomes heavier, damper, allowing these poisonous vapors to drift from the streets and seep through the very walls of your house. You breathe them in. They enter your bloodstream, travel to your brain, and there, they irritate the delicate cerebral tissues, producing agitation, disease, and the terrifying phantoms of your nightmares. Your home, especially your bedroom, is under siege every night from an invisible, airborne poison. This theory immediately creates a paradox of household management. Your first duty, the doctor instructs, is to seal your bedroom off from this external threat. It must become a fortress against the night. Before dusk, the windows must be shut tight and locked. Any cracks or gaps around the sashes must be stuffed with rags. The fireplace flue must be blocked with a chimney board to prevent the miasma from creeping down into your room. Your heavy velvet curtains are no longer just for privacy. They are a final, crucial barrier against the invading pestilence. Your bedroom is to become a hermetically sealed vessel. But then comes the confounding second part of the prescription. While you are protecting yourself from the bad air outside, you must also contend with the bad air generated inside the room. The very act of breathing, he explains, expels carbonic acid and animal effluvia into the air, poisoning it from within. Add to that the fumes from your gas lamp, the odors from the chamber pot under the bed, even the slow decay of the wool fibers in your carpet, and you have a recipe for a potent, home-brewed miasma. So, you must keep the deadly night air out, while simultaneously purifying the equally deadly air that you yourself are creating. It's a domestic challenge of the highest order. A joke, faint and weary, crosses your mind. You didn't realize that a good night's sleep required a doctorate in atmospheric engineering. The doctor, of course, has a list of prescribed techniques for this complex task. This is the new cure, an arsenal of aromatic warfare. First, there is fumigation. He might suggest that, before you retire for the evening, your maid should burn a small amount of sulfur or brimstone in the room to cleanse the stagnant air. The sharp, acrid smoke is believed to kill the invisible poisons. You, of course, should wait in the hallway until the smoke clears, lest you get cleansed right along with the miasma. Next, you are to deploy a constant defense of wholesome scents. He instructs you to hang cloths soaked in vinegar or camphor from the bedposts. The sharp, clean smells are thought to neutralize the foul vapors. He might also recommend strewing fresh herbs on the floor, lavender, rosemary, and mint. As you walk on them, they will be bruised, releasing their pleasant, healthful aromas to do battle with the encroaching funk. Your bedroom is to become a fragrant battlefield. For the patient with money to spend, there are, of course, patented devices. The doctor might endorse the famous carbolic smoke ball, a rubber ball with a nozzle that, when squeezed, puffs out a cloud of powdered carbolic acid. Or perhaps a new-fangled eucalyptus fumigator, a small kettle that sits on a stand and gently steams the room with the pungent, medicinal scent of the Australian wonder plant. You listen to all this, and it feels both scientific and deeply superstitious. You are essentially being told to fight a bad smell with a good smell. And yet, it makes a certain kind of sense. A foul odor is a tangible sign of rot, and the idea that it carries the rot with it is a logical leap. Historians still argue whether the public's eventual acceptance of germ theory was a swift scientific revolution or a slow, reluctant process, with many people continuing to trust their noses over microscopes for decades. For you, right now, the invisible enemy your doctor describes feels far more real than some microscopic bug. You can smell the threat. And so you begin the new regimen. Your evenings are now filled with a strange new set of rituals. The windows are sealed, the curtains drawn. The maid burns a sulfur candle, leaving a faint, hellish tang in the air. You hang your vinegar-soaked rags from the bedposts, their sharp scent making your eyes water. Your floor is a carpet of crushed lavender. Your bedroom, once a simple place of rest, has become a stuffy, fragrant, claustrophobic laboratory. Another small, sad joke for your collection. You suspect sleeping in a large pickle barrel might be less overwhelming to the senses. You get into bed and lie there, breathing this thick, manufactured atmosphere. It's a heady cocktail of scents. The sharp punch of the vinegar, the medicinal tang of the sulfur, and the sweet, floral notes of the herbs all compete for your attention. The air is heavy and close, deprived of any fresh circulation. Instead of feeling safe and protected in your sealed chamber, you feel trapped. A new anxiety takes root. You become hyper-vigilant about every smell. Is that the faint scent of boiled cabbage from the kitchen downstairs? Is that a miasma? You catch a whiff of damp earth from the potted plants in the hall. Is that a source of nocturnal poison? The world, which is full of smells, has become a minefield of potential threats. Your enemy is no longer a faulty organ or a flawed character. It is the invisible, omnipresent atmosphere itself. You lie in your sealed, pungent room, trying to breathe slowly. The air is so thick with competing aromas it feels like you could chew it. The vinegar is giving you a dull headache. And as your mind begins to drift towards the hazy edge of sleep, the familiar coil of dread tightens in your gut. You know, with a weary, sinking certainty, that this will not work. No amount of lavender can soothe a troubled mind. No amount of vinegar can pickle your fears into submission. The miasma you truly fear is not floating in through the window. It rises from a much deeper place, a place that no amount of fumigation can ever hope to reach. And as the sensation of falling begins to take hold, that sickening lurch into the void, you are struck by a final, bitter irony. Here in this airless, suffocating room, where you have fought so hard to control the very atmosphere you breathe, the dream still manages to rob you of your breath entirely. The grand experiment in atmospheric control has been a miserable failure. You wake from a night spent in your sealed, pungent bedchamber feeling not cleansed, but vaguely nauseated. The vinegar-soaked rags did nothing to ward off the phantoms of the night. They only succeeded in making your bedroom smell like a salad. The nightmares came, impervious to sulfur fumes and crushed lavender, proving once and for all that the demons tormenting you were not wafting in through the window. You are running out of options. You have treated your stomach, your soul, and the very air you breathe, all to no effect. Each new cure has simply layered a new kind of misery onto your original suffering. So you consult your physician once more, or perhaps you seek out a new one, a younger man with more modern, forward-thinking ideas. This new doctor listens to your long and sorry tale with an expression of sophisticated sympathy. He hears about the bland diets, the moralizing aunts, the laudanum, and, with a barely suppressed smile, the miasma theory. He dismisses it all. The notion of bad air, causing nightmares, he suggests, is a bit provincial. A relic of a less enlightened time. The true source of your trouble, he explains, using the very latest language of scientific progress, is not external, but internal. The problem lies with your nerves. Your entire nervous system, he tells you, is in a state of chronic irritability. It is overstimulated. He might use the term neurasthenia, or cerebral excitement. He paints a picture of your brain as a telegraph office that has forgotten how to close for the night. The frantic pace of modern life, the scream of the railway whistle, the constant flood of information from the newspapers, the ceaseless thrum of the city, has stretched your delicate nerve fibers to their breaking point. At night, when your brain should be resting, it instead continues to fire off random, chaotic signals. These signals are your nightmares. They are the spasms of an exhausted but overactive mind. This diagnosis feels different. It sounds scientific, neurological. It has the ring of progress to it. And yet, there's a nagging question. Historians still argue whether the focus on nerves represented a genuine step towards a neurological understanding of the mind, or was simply a more scientific-sounding way to pathologize the stresses of modern industrial life. Was he identifying a real medical condition, or was he just giving a fancy Latinate name to your profound unhappiness and exhaustion? Regardless, this new diagnosis comes with a new and exciting cure. The doctor tells you that he is extremely wary of prescribing opiates like laudanum. He acknowledges that they are effective for pain, but for nervous conditions, they can create an unhealthy habit and produce fantastical dreams that are often worse than the original complaint. You nod vigorously at this, the memory of your own surreal opium visions still fresh in your mind. No, he has something far better. A modern miracle of chemistry, perfectly suited for calming the overwrought nerves of the age. It is not an opiate. It is not a plant extract. It is a simple, effective, and, he assures you, perfectly safe mineral salt, potassium bromide. This, he explains, is one of the most important medicines of the modern era. While laudanum merely coaxes the mind into a state of blissful detachment, bromide takes a more direct approach. When dissolved in water, this salt acts as a powerful depressant on the entire central nervous system. It does not bargain with your overstimulated brain. It suffocates it. It dampens the excessive electrical sparks of thought and anxiety, effectively smothering the fire of your imagination. It will, he promises, deliver a profound and utterly dreamless sleep. It will turn your chaotic mental telegraph office into a quiet, empty room. He writes you a prescription for a solution of potassium bromide in water, to be taken in a small dose every evening before bed. You leave his office with a new sense of hope. This is not folklore about bad air or moralizing about your soul. This is chemistry. This is science. You have the prescription filled. The liquid in the bottle is clear and unassuming. It has none of the sinister, romantic allure of the dark, reddish-brown laudanum. You measure out your first dose. It has a distinctly salty taste, with a slightly bitter, metallic aftertaste. There is no sudden, spreading warmth, no blissful wave of calm. Instead, the effect is a slow, creeping, and profound dullness. The sharp, frantic edges of your anxiety are not so much soothed as they are hammered flat. The worries are still there, but they feel distant, heavy, and uninteresting. It's a strange sensation, less like being wrapped in a soft blanket and more like being covered by a heavy lead apron. A small part of you feels like you've just taken a cure for having a personality. But that night, something remarkable happens. You lie down in bed, your mind feeling unusually quiet and slow. And you sleep. It is not a gentle sleep. It is a heavy, bottomless, industrial-grade slumber. It is less like drifting off and more like being switched off. And it is, as the doctor promised, completely, utterly dreamless. There is no falling, no chase, no suffocation, no journey to a surreal opium world. There is simply nothing. A perfect, black void for 8 solid hours. You wake up feeling groggy, slow, and strangely stupid, but you are not terrified. You are not exhausted from a night of spectral marathons. You have, for the first time since this whole ordeal began, slept. You are convinced, with a tidal wave of relief, that this is it. This is the cure. You continue taking the bromide solution every night. The dreamless sleep continues. The black void opens up and swallows you on schedule. It is a reliable, if joyless, escape. But after a week or two, you begin to notice other effects. A persistent, unpleasant metallic taste lingers in your mouth all day. Your thoughts feel thick and slow, as if you are trying to walk through deep mud. You find it difficult to concentrate on a book or a conversation. Your emotions, once so volatile, are now muted and flat. You hear a piece of news that should delight you, and you feel only a faint, phantom echo of happiness. You witness something that should sadden you, and you feel nothing at all. Then your skin begins to betray you. Angry, red, acne-like spots begin to erupt across your face, your chest, your back. They are unsightly and sore. You have, though you don't know the term, a classic case of bromism, a state of chronic intoxication from the steady accumulation of the salt in your system. You have traded your nightmares for a face that, you joke grimly to yourself, could probably frighten gargoyles off a church. The perfect cure is, once again, revealing its dark, hidden price. The bromide has indeed silenced the nightmares in your sleep, but it is doing so by slowly poisoning you during the day. It has created a new, waking nightmare of apathy, mental fog, and physical ugliness. You move through your days in a dull trance, a somnambulist in your own life. Your family and friends look at you with concern, remarking that you seem listless and unwell. Tonight, you stand in your bedroom, looking at your own reflection in the mirror. You see the dull eyes, the slack expression, the blemished skin. It is the face of a stranger, a slow, sad creature you don't recognize. In your hand, you hold the small glass of clear, salty water. Your nightly dose. Your guaranteed ticket to oblivion. And you are faced with a terrible choice. You can drink it, and be assured of a quiet, empty night, free from all terrors. But the price is to continue this gray, zombie-like existence tomorrow, and the day after that. Or you can put the glass down. You can face the certain return of the old horrors, the falling, the chase, the suffocating hag, but in doing so, perhaps you might also welcome the return of yourself. The return of feeling, of thought, of a face that is your own. The silence the bromide offers is the silence of a dead telephone line, the peace of a city in ruins. Is a dreamless sleep worth living a lifeless day? You stare at the glass, and for the first time, the perfect, black void it promises seems just as terrifying as the nightmares it keeps at bay. You look at your own reflection in the mirror, the dull eyes, the blemished skin, the slow, vacant expression of the bromide user, and you make a choice. You choose fear over fog. You pour the rest of the salty, clear liquid down the wash basin, the gurgle of the drain sounding like a small cheer for your own liberation. You would rather be haunted than hollow. You would rather face the nightly terror of your own mind than spend your days as a walking ghost. The choice is freeing, but it solves nothing. The bromides are gone, and, as expected, the nightmares return with a vengeance, seemingly energized by their brief chemical holiday. You are back where you started, sleepless, exhausted, and desperate. You have tried the doctor's science, the priest's morality, and the chemist's poisons. All have failed you. There must be another way, a path that doesn't involve being punished, poisoned, or prayed over. It is then that you hear of it, perhaps from a friend who has been cured, or in the pages of a health-focused magazine. You hear of a new, revolutionary movement in healing, one that turns its back on drugs and complex theories and instead embraces the simplest, purest, most powerful element on Earth, water. It is the world of hydrotherapy, the water cure, and it promises not to suppress your symptoms, but to wash them away entirely. Driven by this new hope, you make a journey. You leave the grime and noise of the city behind and travel to a hydropathic institute, a special establishment dedicated to this water-based healing. It is likely nestled in the countryside, a grand house surrounded by green hills and fresh air. The moment you step inside, you feel the difference. The atmosphere is clean and bright. The air smells not of sulfur and vinegar, but of damp linen, pine needles, and wholesome, simple cooking. There are no stuffy, curtained-off rooms here. Instead, the windows are thrown open to the breeze. It feels less like a hospital and more like a temple dedicated to health. You have a consultation with the head of the institute, the water doctor. He is a man of great vigor and enthusiasm, with a ruddy complexion and a firm handshake. He listens to your long history of failed cures with a sympathetic but disapproving frown. The diet, he says, starved your vital force. The laudanum and bromides, he scoffs, are filthy poisons that have clogged your system and paralyzed your nerves. His theory is simple and powerful. Your body, he explains, is full of toxins, the residue of bad food, polluted city air, and, of course, the ill-advised medicines you've been taking. Your nervous energy, the source of both healthy life and nightmarish agitation, is blocked and stagnant. The goal of the water cure, he says with evangelical zeal, is to create a series of crises in the body. By applying water in various forms and at various temperatures, they will shock your system, awaken your dormant vital force, open the pores, and flush the accumulated poisons out of you. Water will be the jolt that resets your entire physical economy, restoring natural harmony and, with it, natural sleep. It sounds dramatic, violent even, but also strangely plausible. After all the complex theories, the simple purity of it is appealing. Still, a modern observer might be skeptical. Historians still argue whether the perceived benefits of hydrotherapy came from any intrinsic property of the water itself, or from the combination of a controlled environment, strict diet, regular exercise, and the powerful placebo effect of undergoing such a dramatic regimen. Are you about to be cured by water, or simply by escaping your life and living like a healthy person for a few weeks? Your treatment begins the very next morning, and you quickly learn that this is not a gentle, spa-like experience. You are led to a cold, tiled room that looks like a torture chamber designed by a very clean-minded inquisitor. Your first treatment is the douche. You are instructed to stand at one end of the room while an attendant aims a powerful jet of freezing cold water at you from a thick hose. The shock of it is breathtaking, a violent, full-body slap that makes you gasp and sputter. The attendant directs the stream up and down your spine, across your abdomen, a brutal, icy massage. It's over in 2 minutes, leaving you shivering, blue-lipped, and gasping, but also, strangely, feeling more alive than you have in years. You can't help but think that calling this a douche is a hilarious understatement. It was a full frontal assault by fire hose. But the douche is merely an overture. The true centerpiece of the water cure, the treatment you will undergo daily, is the wet sheet wrap, or the pack. You are brought to your room, where an attendant instructs you to undress completely. Laid out on your bed is a thick woolen blanket, and on top of it, a large linen sheet that has been freshly soaked in a bucket of icy water. Before you can reconsider, you are instructed to lie down, and the attendant wraps you in the freezing, wet sheet with practiced, terrifying speed. She pulls it tight, pinning your arms to your sides, then wraps you again and again until you are a helpless, shivering mummy. Finally, she piles on more heavy, dry, woolen blankets, tucking them in tightly until you are completely immobilized in a cold, damp, dark cocoon. Then she leaves you. The first 10 minutes are pure misery. An intense, penetrating cold seeps into your very bones. You begin to shiver violently, your teeth chattering uncontrollably. The feeling of being so cold, so wet, and so completely unable to move is a unique form of torment. It feels like a terrible mistake. But then, a change begins. Your body, fighting back against the cold, starts to generate a ferocious amount of heat. The shivering subsides, and a slow, deep warmth begins to spread through your core. It is a profoundly comforting sensation, a feeling of returning to life. It's almost like being back in the womb. Soon, the warmth intensifies into heat. You can feel the steam rising from your own skin, trapped by the wet sheets. You begin to sweat. Then you are sweating profusely, pouring out moisture until the freezing sheets you were wrapped in are now a hot, steaming compress. This, the water doctor explained, is the crisis you are aiming for, the moment the poisons are flushed from your system through your pores. You lie there for an hour, swaddled and sweating, a one-person sauna, until the attendant returns to unwrap you and lead you to a cool bath to rinse off. Your days at the Institute fall into a rhythm built around these shocks. You wake at dawn, drink several glasses of cold spring water. You go for a brisk, 2-hour walk in the country air. Then you face your daily cycle of watery ordeals, the icy douche, the sitz bath, the wrap. You compare it to the cold bath your aunt prescribed as part of the moral cure. That seems like a pleasant paddle in a puddle compared to this systematic, medicalized assault on your senses. And then, a miracle happens. You sleep. At night, you climb into your simple, clean bed, your body humming with exhaustion and your skin tingling from the day's treatments, and you fall into a sleep so deep it feels like the bottom of a well. It is not the drugged, empty void of the bromides or the surreal theater of the opiates. It is simply the profound, dreamless sleep of a body that has been pushed to its absolute limit. You have been shocked, sprayed, wrapped, and walked into a state of submission. Your body is too tired for nightmares. You lie in the darkness of your room at the Hydropathic Institute, listening to the sound of crickets outside the open window. The cure is working. The terror of the night is gone, replaced by the simple peace of exhaustion. But a question lingers in your quieted mind. Is this a permanent solution? Can you really spend the rest of your life being blasted with cold water and wrapped in wet sheets? Or have you just found a temporary, and rather dramatic, way to outrun your fears? You have shocked the monster into hiding, but you know, deep down, you haven't killed it. And you wonder, with a faint tremor of the old anxiety, what will happen when the shocks stop. You leave the Hydropathic Institute feeling like a new person, scoured clean from the inside out. The peace of sheer, bone-deep exhaustion is a powerful medicine, and for weeks, it holds. Back in your own home, in your own bed, you sleep a heavy, dreamless sleep, your body too tired from the memory of its watery ordeal to muster the energy for nightmares. You believe, with a fragile, cautious optimism, that you may finally be cured. But the peace of exhaustion is a temporary truce, not a surrender. As the memory of the daily icy douches and suffocating wet sheet wraps begins to fade, your body recovers its energy. And your mind, no longer battered into submission each day, begins to stir. At first, it's just a whisper at the edges of your sleep, a brief flash of the old falling sensation, a fleeting shadow of the pursuer in the dark alley. But night by night, the whispers grow louder. The nightmares are regrouping. The water cure, you realize with a familiar sinking heart, was not a cure at all. It was merely a beautifully effective, if rather brutal, distraction. You have now exhausted the body. You have tried to fix it with diet, to pacify it with drugs, to shock it into submission with water. You have tried to purify your soul with prayer and your environment with fumigation. There is only one territory left to explore, the one that has been the source of all the trouble from the very beginning, the mind itself. It is a radical and, in some circles, controversial idea. But you begin to hear of a new school of thought, one that suggests the mind is not merely a passive victim of the body's ailments but a powerful force that can be trained, managed, and even healed. This is the burgeoning world of the mind cure, a strange and fascinating frontier of rudimentary psychotherapy. It offers you two distinct and intriguing paths towards conquering your fears from within. The first path is shrouded in mystery and theatricality. It is called mesmerism. You seek out a practitioner, a man who calls himself a mesmerist. You find yourself in his dimly lit consulting room, which smells strongly of sandalwood incense. He is a commanding figure with a deep, soothing voice and eyes that seem to look right through you. He explains that all living things are connected by an invisible force, a fluid called animal magnetism. Your nightmares, he tells you, are the result of a blockage or imbalance in the flow of this vital fluid through your nervous system. He can restore the balance. The session begins. He asks you to sit in a comfortable chair while he makes a series of slow, sweeping gestures, or passes, with his hands, moving from your head down to your feet. He never touches you, but you can feel a strange tingling sensation on your skin as his hands move through the air nearby. He is, he claims, smoothing out the disruptions in your magnetic field. Next, he lights a single candle and asks you to stare into its flickering flame. As you focus on the dancing light, His voice begins a low, monotonous patter. "You are feeling calm," he drones. "Your breathing is deep and regular. Your eyelids are growing heavy, so very heavy. You wish only to close your eyes and sink into a state of profound and peaceful rest. You struggle to resist, but the combination of the incense, the flickering light, and his endlessly repetitive voice is incredibly powerful. Your eyelids do feel like lead weights. You let them close. You are not asleep, but you are not fully awake either. You are floating in a calm, suggestible, trance-like state. This, you know, is the mesmeric trance, a precursor to what will later be called hypnosis, a practice that, while often dismissed as stage entertainment, was being seriously explored by some physicians for treating nervous conditions. Now that you are in this state, the mesmerist begins his real work. He gives you a series of direct commands, what a future generation will call post-hypnotic suggestions. "Tonight, you will sleep deeply and peacefully," he says, his voice full of authority. "Your dreams will be calm and pleasant. You are the master of your own mind. You have the power to dismiss any troubling thought. Fear has no hold on you." He might even touch your hand and say, "Whenever you feel anxious, you will simply press your thumb and forefinger together, like so, and this same feeling of deep calm will wash over you." You leave the session feeling light-headed, serene, and deeply weirded out. You're not sure if your animal magnetism has been retuned or if you've just been lulled into a state of relaxation by some clever theatrix. You joke to yourself that you just hope he didn't implant a suggestion to start clucking like a chicken whenever a bell rings. But that night, you press your thumb and forefinger together. You recall the feeling of calm. And you sleep more soundly than you have in weeks, with only the faintest of dream shadows to trouble you. The second path of the mind cure is less dramatic but perhaps more demanding. It is the path of thought management, or new thought. You might read a book on the subject or attend a public lecture by a proponent of the movement. The speaker is not a charismatic showman, but more of a philosopher. They argue that nightmares are nothing more than the logical consequence of your waking thoughts. If you spend your day mired in anxiety, fear, and negativity, your mind will simply continue that work at night, staging elaborate theatrical productions of your worries. The problem isn't a fluid, it's your focus. It sounds simple, but the implications are profound. It feels like a distant echo of the moral cure your aunt recommended, but with a crucial difference. The moral cure was about shame, about rooting out and punishing bad thoughts. This new mind cure is about management. It teaches that all thoughts are just thoughts. They have no power unless you give it to them. This idea is so new and strange. Historians still argue whether the mind cure movement was the true dawn of modern psychotherapy or a secular form of religious faith healing, swapping prayer for positive affirmations. Is this a new science of the mind, or just a new kind of belief system requiring its own leap of faith? The cure is a series of mental exercises, a form of cognitive gymnastics. First, you must practice thought stopping. When you catch yourself spiraling into an anxious thought, worrying about your health, your finances, the nightmare that might come tonight, you are to consciously halt it. You are to picture a large red stop sign in your mind, and then immediately and deliberately replace the anxious thought with a prepared, peaceful one. An affirmation like, "My mind is a place of peace," or "I am safe and calm." Second, you are taught to harness the power of visualization. Every evening before bed, you are to spend 15 minutes in a quiet room, vividly imagining a peaceful scene. You are to build it in your mind's eye with as much sensory detail as possible. A sun-drenched meadow, the smell of the grass, the sound of a gentle breeze, the warmth of the sun on your skin. The goal is to create a mental sanctuary that you can retreat to, associating it with a deep feeling of tranquility. Finally, you must curate your mental diet. Just as the first doctor forbade you from eating rich foods, this new philosophy forbids you from consuming morbid or sensational thoughts. You must stop reading the lurid crime reports in the newspaper. You must put away the Gothic novels full of ghosts and madness. You must learn to steer conversations away from gossip and complaint. You try to put all of this into practice, and you discover it is the hardest work you have ever done. Your mind, it turns out, is a wild and unruly place. Trying to police your own thoughts is exhausting. The anxious thoughts you try to suppress just pop up somewhere else, like a grim game of whack-a-mole. You spend so much time watching for bad thoughts that the watching itself becomes an anxious habit. You joke that your brain seems to have more intrusive pop-up ads than a disreputable website. Tonight, you lie in your bed. You are not physically exhausted from a water cure or chemically dulled by a drug. You are mentally weary from a day spent wrestling with your own consciousness. But as you lie there, you feel something new. A flicker of agency. A sense that you are no longer a passive victim being acted upon by your rebellious gut, your sinful soul, or your faulty nerves. You are an active participant in the arena of your own mind. The familiar, cold tendrils of dread begin to stir in the darkness. The old fear. The prelude to the fall. But this time, instead of surrendering to it, you fight back with these new, strange weapons. You take a slow, deliberate breath. You picture the sunlit meadow. You feel the phantom warmth of the sun on your skin. You silently repeat the affirmation you've been practicing all week. My mind is calm and at peace. It may not work. The monster may be too strong. But for the first time, you feel you are not just waiting for a cure to be done to you. You are trying to be the cure. For the first time, the battle feels like it is finally being waged on the correct field. The nightly battle in the quiet theater of your mind is exhausting. The techniques of the mind cure are a noble weapon, but they require constant vigilance, a level of mental energy you do not always possess. On days when you are tired or stressed from the demands of your life, your mental defenses weaken, the affirmations feel hollow, and the peaceful, sunlit meadow in your imagination is quickly overrun with dark, thorny weeds. The nightmares, though perhaps less frequent, still find their way through the cracks in your willpower. And so you come to a final, very Victorian conclusion. Your will is not enough. You need an external power source. You need to augment your mind with a machine. You turn your hopes to the newest and most potent god of your age, the invisible force that is changing the world, the power that hums in the telegraph wires and explodes in the brilliant arc lamps lighting the city streets. You turn to electricity. This mysterious, magical power is the ultimate symbol of progress and scientific conquest. If it can send a message across an ocean in an instant, surely it can correct the faulty wiring in a single, troubled human brain. You enter the strange and wonderful world of medical electricity. Perhaps you visit a progressive doctor who has invested in the latest equipment, or maybe you simply become intrigued by the bold advertisements that fill the pages of the popular magazines. The theory, as it is explained to you, is electrifyingly simple. Your nervous system, the doctor says, is fundamentally a biological telegraph system. Your vital force is a form of electrical energy. Your nightmares, therefore, are simply a symptom of a weak or irregular current, a series of short circuits in your cerebral apparatus. By applying a gentle, controlled dose of electricity, you can recharge your depleted nerves, restore the system's proper polarity, and bring your entire physical and mental economy back into a state of harmonious balance. Your first treatment might take place in a doctor's office, with a device that looks both medical and slightly menacing. It is an electromagnetic machine, a handsome polished box made of oak or mahogany, with brass fittings, insulated wires, and a hand crank. The doctor soaks 2 sponge-tipped electrodes in salt water and places them on your body, perhaps on the back of your neck and at the base of your spine. He then begins to turn the crank. You feel a sensation unlike any other you have experienced. It is not pain, precisely, but an intense, high-frequency buzzing, a pins and needles feeling that penetrates deep beneath your skin. Your muscles twitch and jump in response to the invisible current, a bizarre, involuntary dance. The doctor might slowly increase the intensity, asking you to report what you are feeling. The whole experience is potent, tangible, and undeniably scientific. You can't help but feel a little like one of those laboratory frogs from a science lecture, or perhaps like you're being charged up like a battery. You have a fleeting, absurd thought that this must be how Frankenstein's monster felt, just before it sat up and asked for a cup of tea. But the true marvel of the electric age is that this power is not confined to the doctor's office. It is being marketed directly to you. The magazines are filled with advertisements for an astonishing array of personal electrotherapeutic devices, promising to cure everything from deafness and indigestion to, yes, your very own ailment of nervous exhaustion and bad dreams. And so, you make one final purchase in your long and desperate quest for a cure. You buy a piece of wearable technology. It might be a magnetic corset or an electric belt. You order it from a catalog, and it arrives in a neat cardboard box. You unwrap it and find a strange hybrid garment. It is a belt or corset made of canvas or leather, but stitched into the lining are a series of small, alternating plates of zinc and copper, or perhaps a series of flat, specially treated magnets. The instructions explain that the natural moisture of your skin will react with the metals to create a gentle, continuous galvanic current, while the magnets will align your body's own magnetic field. This device will provide a constant, low-level therapeutic charge to your system, toning your nerves during the day and, most importantly, protecting you while you sleep. You are to wear your electrical armor to bed. You find yourself smiling grimly at the thought. After all this, your last line of defense against the phantoms of the night is a set of electrified underpants. You put it on. It feels strange against your skin, heavy and cool. You can feel the distinct outlines of the metal plates. As it warms to your body temperature, you think you can feel a faint, almost imperceptible tingle. You wear it throughout the day, a constant, physical reminder of this new, modern cure. You wonder, as you sit down to dinner, if the thing is really doing anything at all. Historians still argue whether the appeal of electrotherapy was based on its actual physiological effects, which were minimal, or on its power as a psychological symbol of scientific modernity, a placebo of progress. Are you truly being healed by a subtle electrical current? Or are you being healed by your profound, desperate belief that the greatest force of your age must surely be able to help you? Night falls. You go through your usual rituals, but with this one, strange addition. You get into your night clothes and then you strap on your electric belt. It is a bizarre, intimate act. You are no longer just you. You are you, plus technology. You are a hybrid creature of flesh and wire, a truly modern individual preparing for bed. You lie in the dark, feeling the weight of the belt against your skin. It is not uncomfortable, but it is undeniably there. It gives your anxious mind something new and tangible to focus on. Instead of straining to hear the house creak or worrying about the state of your soul, you find yourself concentrating on the sensation of the belt. Is that a tingle? Was it stronger just then? It is, in its own way, a powerful distraction. And perhaps, because of all these things, the placebo, the distraction, the sheer novelty, it seems to work. A little. The nightmares don't vanish entirely, but they seem to lose their sharp, terrifying edge. They become more distant, more muffled, as if the electrical current is creating a kind of static that interferes with their transmission. It is not a cure, not a true and final victory, but it is a truce. It is the most advanced, most scientific, and most quintessentially Victorian solution imaginable, a sticking plaster made of lightning. You are lying in your bed, encased in the gentle, buzzing embrace of your electric belt. You have been on an odyssey through the strange landscape of your own era's medicine. You have starved your gut and disciplined your soul. You have been poisoned by poppies and salts. You have been drowned in wet sheets and zapped with invisible forces. You have journeyed from the miasma in your air to the magnetism in your own body. And you have survived it all. As you drift toward the edge of sleep, you feel the faint, technological hum against your skin, a lullaby of the industrial age. You wonder what wonders and horrors the next century will bring. What new names will they give to your ancient fear? What new cures, what new machines, what new pills will they invent to fight the timeless monsters that wait for us all in the dark? Your long, gaslit Victorian night is drawing to a close. A new dawn, with new ideas about the mind, about anxiety, trauma, and the vast, uncharted territory of the subconscious, is about to break. And so, your journey through the gaslit night, through the strange and often terrifying world of Victorian cures, finally comes to a close. The parade of treatments, the bland diets, the bitter tonics, the opium dreams and bromide fogs, the shocking jets of cold water and the faint, buzzing embrace of electricity, all of it begins to recede, fading like the memory of a half-forgotten dream upon waking. Let the image of that dimly lit bedroom dissolve. Let go of the anxieties of that long-ago time. Feel yourself returning now, gently, to the present moment. to the safety and comfort of your own bed, in your own room. The air you breathe is fresh and clean, free from any imaginary miasma. The only forces at play are the soft weight of your own blanket and the steady, rhythmic beat of your own heart. The science that surrounds you now is one of comfort and understanding, so far removed from the desperate guesses of the past. Those old fears are just stories now, whispers from another time, and they have no power here. Here, in the quiet of your own space, you are safe. You are at peace. Allow the narrative to drift away, letting the gentle cadence of the story become just a soft, background hum, a soothing sound to accompany your descent into a deep and truly restful sleep. There is nothing left to analyze, nothing to fear, nothing to fight. There is only rest, only peace. End of script. Sweet dreams.